Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
Culture and Flavor is a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways. Hosted by myself, Zella Palmer, right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Each episode features high vibrational conversations with cultural bearers, chefs, farmers, scholars, barbecue pitmasters, and more. Where there is flavor, there is history. Join me on Culture and Flavor and all of my guests as we share stories that will have you praise dancing, cooking, conjuring, and inspiring your culinary journey. Welcome to another episode of Culture and Flavor with Zella Palmer. Today, y'all, we have a special guest, Joëlle Dussek, who is one of my just lovely friends that is such a light, is such an amazing Black woman in food media that is doing incredible things. I am so excited to have her on this episode of Culture and Flavor and to really talk about just her background, being both Haitian and African American, her recent master's degree from the California Institute of Integral Studies on Somatic psychology, and also all of the work that she did on the Food Network with Chopped and the iTunes podcast Empire on Blood. Welcome, Joëlle, to Culture and Flavor.
Thank you for having me. So lovely to be here.
Awesome. Let's get into it. So, just to give our listeners just a background on how we met, Joëlle, I recently had my aunt on Culture and Flavor, and we all kind of met through this HBCU tailgate throwdown that was filmed at Dillard. And you were such an amazing, just light and just breath of fresh air, and just how you worked with students, and we were just so amazed to have you. And I know I'm going to have you back for some future programming just to talk to students, especially our film majors, about food media. And I just want to talk about how you got started in food media and, just your trajectory through this world.
Wonderful. Well, to be very honest, it was a leap of faith. I think we don't talk about that enough, of when you just have a sense that this ain't it. I was looking in marketing, and we were doing these big projects for, ABC television and all this stuff. And we weren't getting any credit for anything. It's always based off of the client. And I said, this ain't it. I want to not only get credit for what it is I'm doing behind the curtain, which is already unseen in a lot of ways. I want it to be seen, whether it's just in a small accreditation and rolling at the end of a film or a TV show and nobody stays around, but it's recorded somewhere, right? And I took a leap of faith. I started at the bottom, leaving marketing and starting as a production assistant. I did, like Taking of Pelham, 1, 2, 3, large films of Denzel Washington, I Am Legend, like starting off at assistant level there. But when you start to understand the beast of media, you're like, okay, either you want to ride this out in the larger frame, or do you want to get more succinct and specialized? And I went that route. I wanted to be in the office. I wanted to be where the money was. I wanted to see who the people were that made the thing actually happen, that wasn't explicitly just creative. And I found my way into offices for like the Kathy Griffin show, like smaller TV shows, but still had big followings on, Bravo or whatever. And there was an opportunity to come on as a coordinator for Food Network's Chopped. And I was like, I like that show. And it was super new. It was still, I think I came in on season 4. So super early, and I said, well, let me see what this is about. They paid well enough. And it was also going to give me a bump from assistant to coordinator. And that's kind of how I got started. And the more I learned, I think actually within the first season, the first chunk that I worked, I realized there are little loopholes and issues between talent and paperwork. And I tell people all the time, if you find a loophole to create the job of your dreams, do it. And Chopped gave me that opportunity. I said, I don't mind coordinating, but I think you're missing an opportunity to have a talent person, someone just focused on talent that can really ride out all of your paperwork and money strategy around who's in front of the camera, whether that's a judge or a competing chef. And I'm so grateful for other amazing Black line producers, Black women, queer folks who are just like already marginalized and like, okay, let's do this. And we created that position, and it sort of avalanched into not only a career in this world of like food, culinary, television, but it also institutionalized systems within talent management within that world that now has been adopted into many more programs on Food Network. I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And, just when I think about, since you started it from the beginning, I'm sure, just having, like you said, marginalized folks in media behind the scenes making this happen, I'm sure, I know we saw the difference as the episodes and the seasons, continue to grow, and the people who were included on the television program. And, I think about even just Chef Linda. I mean, that was just such a, moment in New Orleans just to see, Chef Linda Green, the Yakameen lady, win Chopped. I mean, we were just like blown away by that, and that really made us so happy. So, I loved just watching the growth of Chopped and just seeing how, it changed over the years, and each episode seemed to be more inclusive. And even the ingredients started to change and be more inclusive of the world that we live in. I remember watching one episode where one of the mystery ingredients was plantains, and some of the comments that were made about plantains, and not either it was the judge or one of the chefs weren't sure what to do with a plantain, And I was just thinking to myself at the time, just how we have to be in these spaces, and we have to make sure that, our food from all over the world is prime and center. And I think you also did that with HBCU Tailgate Throwdown. When I think about the Cameroonian chef that, was part of the lineup, and just showing diversity in our foodways, and especially in Black foodways, is critical to building a global cuisine and getting recognition for it as much as other cuisines, from other continents and regions. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important, especially you know, we know this, particularly the Western culinary world. They glorify particularly French cuisine or the culinary dynamics and construction for that. But then we live in New Orleans, right? We live where people literally come from all over the world to have gumbo, and that is in and of itself foundationally an African, West African dish. And that's not, you know, I was in a conversation with a young man from New Orleans, and he was just like, his interpretation of gumbo I found interesting. And I said, wow, we're losing a lot of the actual history and the necessity to bring back language, right? Like the word gumbo actually meaning just okra in West Africa. It is an actual word that is utilized in everyday language that we just think is a dish. And so, to your point about plantains, me being Haitian, obviously that is a huge staple to our cuisine. We say banan, but there's so many different ways to use it, and how it has sustained so many people on the Western Hemisphere just alone throughout the ages.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad you touched on your background. You know, I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit more about your childhood upbringing. I mean, your life between New York and New Orleans, you know, and even just how Haitian culture and African American culture has grounded you in who you are and the stories that you tell.
Yeah. So my mother is Haitian. My father is African American or Black American, here from the States, some country folk. And, you know, and I love that because it gives me a different context around lived experiences. My paternal grandmother, beautiful as she was, stood 6'2", you know, tall, dark skin, very fine hair, but she was raised on a reservation as a Black Indian, right? And so I hold these awarenesses of, one, being Black in America means so many things. It may be Black and red. It may be Caribbean, right? As New Orleans holds all those intersections. And so it was very important for my mom, who immigrated here in the early 60s, you know, unfortunately fleeing Haiti at a very harsh time with a very harsh dictator, and coming for our family. We were of a certain elite class, and that's very real. I don't think one thing we don't talk enough about is how class plays a role in the larger story of Black culture. And they fled to America and had to start from the bottom, had to learn to speak English. I was just talking about this with one of my aunts who came here about 13 years old, and she didn't know how to ask to go to the bathroom, right, in English when she first came to this country. So we think about, what does that mean? How does that linger on in the relationship and their strive to make sure that they're doing well in the new country that they're in? All that to be said, my mom grew up here, high school, college. She met my father in Northeastern in Boston. Go Huskies for those listening. And she's, you know, Zeta, you know, everybody did she came into the Divine Nine. I love that she took proactive approaches to not only be herself fully in how she recognizes her being Haitian and now American, Black American, but also Black American culture and in the ways that it showed up that made sense to her. And so they had me. And what I love about that coming together was it just really became a part of how I recognize the world in a multiplicity. And so at about 10 years old, we moved from New York City, because I was born and raised in New York, Queens originally. And then we moved here to New Orleans, where I then had to adjust from the Northeastern mentality to the Southern. I remember coming here and I said, "Hi, you guys." And this girl in my class said, "Oh, we don't say that. We say y'all." I said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." You know, and I had to learn, we in the South. I got to learn the new things. And I loved how like I had a funny name and they could tell I was like Black with some extra sauce or something. They were like, what are you? I was just like, I'm Black. Like, you know, like I had to remember like, yeah, like y'all not here to hear about Haiti and, you know, but they're like, yeah, you Black? All right, that's good. You with us. That's all that matters. And that kind of thinking helps me to navigate the multiplicity of what Black can be and look like, whether it's from the continent to the West Indies, South America, North America. And I'm so grateful for having both heritages, as well as being from both cities. I tell people all the time, like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from here. I'm from New Orleans and I'm from New York. I'm a hybrid. And there's space for us to exist because in a lot of ways, we changed the way of language to be more helpful, right? Across cultural lines.
As you grew, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from both of your backgrounds, both of your heritages, from both sides? What are some of the lessons that you've learned just living in that duality between New York and New Orleans about place, about who you are as a Black woman showing up in media?
Definitely. So in New York, I would say the double-edged sword of grinding and keeping up with the pace. There's one thing I appreciate is that New York is sort of like iron sharpens iron. When you are in, as I call New York, sort of the ocean or the sea of New York, you ain't the big fish. You ain't never gonna be the big fish. There's whales in here. There's clownfish. This is an ocean. And New York, you have to really roll with your identity. Even if you're coral, even if you're an eel, you start to understand your identity. You start to understand how you move through sort of the waves of all the things, right? And that's also why the city can sort of eat you up. If you don't know and you don't figure it out fast enough, it's going to wash you out. But if you can sustain, and you can always tap out, you can always leave. I've left. It sharpens you. It really makes you appreciate whatever your craft is, whether that's in the fashion industry or media or being a lawyer. And it's taught me how to, again, in an international lens, be able to speak across different lines. Even as young, I think about being 7 and being able to identify what every child in my 2nd grade class was from hereditarily. That's not normal, right? Most people don't have that opportunity to say, oh, so-and-so's from Guyana, so-and-so's from Nigeria, so-and-so is Irish. That changes the way you walk into the world even 10 years later, because some people are just learning all these languages or cultures or people, and that's imprinted at 7. But that pace after a while of New York gets tiring, at least for me. I will speak for myself in that way. And then there's this beautiful sanctuary that I call New Orleans that teaches you how to slow down, how to be in your body, how to enjoy pleasures in the most normal way, like music, right? You move to New Orleans and then growing up here, how normal it was that every one of your friends not only was a musician, but could sing or knew how to groove and dance. And that was just like, wow, amazing. I can enjoy the pleasures of the Big Easy. We literally call it the Big Easy because, as my nanny would say, where is you going? Why is you going? Sit down, right? And growing up between those sort of speed dials, I will say when I lived in California, it was the first time I noticed I only had 2 speed dials. I had very fast New York and very slow New Orleans, very relaxed. California was the only place I found, oh, this is middle. This is a normal pace, right? I didn't know what that was until I had to go a little farther west. But yeah, yep. In general, the two make a beautiful harmony when you allow them.
And what are some of your food memories from growing up between both illustrious cities, as you put it?
You know what's funny? The first thing that comes to mind is heat. Heat. I will never forget as a child, my grandmother giving me a dish, my Haitian grandmother giving me a dish, and it was hot. It was like one of those moments where I was being honored a grown dish of Haitian, Haitian culture. And I felt I was like, yeah, I'm eating at the table with the grown people. I'm going to eat the grown people stuff, right? And I took a bite of that thing. I said, oh, pima, pique, like it's hot. And she was racing to get me some juice or something. Oh, my dog, she babied me. I loved it though. And that's a very strong memory of really feeling like I've graduated in some ways to eat the real Haitian food. And it was hot. And then 10 years old, my mom moves us to New Orleans, and I go to my first social event. I don't think I had been here a month, maybe, not even. I feel like only a few weeks. And where am I at? A crawfish boil. Child. I was like, this looks like a lot of work. I don't know. My mom said, well, just have the corn. And I was like, yeah, I'll have the corn. And what's the first memory? It's burning my mouth. And my mom was like, well, we're here now, and it doesn't get any less spicier. And that was memory. That's like literal memory of like, figure it out. I think she said that, like, figure it out, because this is where we live now. So heat is the first culinary memory of both sides.
Have you been able to visit Haiti and visit your family there, or any distant family relatives in Haiti yet?
No, especially not after the earthquake, and no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But, in New Orleans and New York, there are, Haitian communities. How have you been able to kind of, just be a part of that community, or just focus on taking what that heritage and let me back up, erase that part. How have you been able to engage with the Haitian community in New York and New Orleans, so that you can also tell stories that, like you said, are a duality of who you are in this world?
So I feel like, for me, engaging in the Haitian community in both cities, depending on like now versus back in the day, now it's more just being a community member, being someone that folks know, if you need this, that, and the third, do not hesitate. I am available. Whether that's, and like extending my resources. I feel like at this age and stage, it is very important to be a resource if you have capacity, if you have the connections and the networks. So if that is, and let me also say, being Haitian for me means being Hispanic, claiming my Hispanic, us being the original Hispaniola, which is where you get the word Hispanic from, Afro-Latina or Latinx, as well as being Black, like working actively in those intersections so that folks can come to you from any of those intersections. That's how I resonate with being a communal Haitian woman. And that means if you need anything, whether that's something very simple, like, I need a hookup to know where to get pâté. Okay, fine. Or, but it extends to other Black communities. I've had Brazilian friends hit me up like, hi, we've had a crisis and we know that you're good people and we know that you're located in New Orleans. Can you help us? Yes, I can. As someone who's a part of the Latin community, I can. As a Haitian woman, I don't have to always speak one language to be of help, right? In New York is just, New Orleans Haitian community is a little smaller. Obviously, most Haitians now live on the West Bank of New Orleans. When I was growing up, most Haitians lived on the East Bank in the 90s. So, and deep in the East. So that's changed. But in New York, the Haitian community is so robust, and it's always sort of repopulating itself, for better or for worse, unfortunately, with all that is happening in our small half an island. My aunt being a former immigration attorney, we've had to make sure to be available to folks who need advocacy, just understanding how to work the system to be able to stay, or understanding what it means if they have to go back, right? Having cousins and families who work for the DA's office. Like, this is very crucial in being a community member, first and foremost. But in general, because I'm just a very fun, loving kind of gal, I make sure that I'm investing in the fun too. Where's the balls? Where are the parties? Where are the good food? Where is the music, right? As someone who prides myself in being a carnival queen, I'm always making sure that my Haitian flag is seen in these spaces with other Caribbean people, just because folks, unfortunately, the historical aspect of Haiti in the Caribbean, a lot of islands were taught to not like us. And now people are remembering, like, wait, no, you are the first Black Republic. Like, you fought hard for all of us to be free. And the more that information is coming back to light, and the younger generation is sitting with that, as well as the older generation is adjusting to their preconceived notions, it's time to have a good time. Let's be together in community. And I love that through carnival, costuming, dance, music, and such.
I mean, the reality is, a lot of Haitian influence has a huge impact on even just when I think about New Orleans culture, red beans and rice, flambeau, carnival culture, as you said. But, just in general, even in Latin American culture as well. And it's unfortunate that, like you said, that it's still Haitian culture and, the legacy of what Haiti has contributed to the world is still yet to be told. And I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine, Chef Tani, who's a Haitian American chef for the Portland Trail Blazers. And, she was talking to me about just the shame that she felt. And a lot of Haitian Americans can probably, resonate with her feelings, but just growing up in Miami in Little Haiti and, feeling like she had to say she was African American because, Haitians were looked down upon. And, she said we would kind of hide our culture sometimes. And not until the Fugees, became a success were people like nodding at us like, okay, y'all are Haitian, and
right.
and just the fear behind that between religion, Vodun and, all of the fear that was put on a beautiful country, a beautiful people. And we still see that today with, how Haitian undocumented immigrants are treated in this country, and compared to other immigrants when they come to this country. And it's heartbreaking to see those images and, and when those, so many were under that bridge in Texas, and then all of a sudden they just disappear and you don't know what happened to them,
Okay. Seriously.
And they weren't disappeared. They were removed clearly, intentionally. Exactly. And so for, Haitian Americans, I think to show up in political spaces or in, and symbols of power is powerful for all Haitians wherever they are, and so, I'm just curious, how do you see food media growing and telling these, stories of marginalized communities and countries, considering, all of the legacy that Haiti, that even African Americans, African American heritage is just a little bit is coming out. And we're not even at the cusp of all the stories that need to be told. How do you see it evolving, and what do you feel is the future of food media and global Black foodways?
That's a really good question. And I'm still sort of lingering with the question you asked before, because there's a tie between the two. And I just want to name that, one, it's about intentionality. So the question before was about like, how am I in my community? You have to be intentional, especially if you want to see good change and good impact, right? And I say that to say, like, as I'm here in New Orleans, I make sure to do little things, possibly like host a dinner at my house for Fête Guédé, which is slightly a predecessor to Dia de los Muertos, right? Where we honor our ancestors. And that ritual in Haiti slightly is older than the one in Mexico. And there's a lot of questions of, did it transfer over with indigenous cultures, things like that. But hosting that here in New Orleans, in my home, where I'm offering good Haitian food or just music and bringing that energy in, that intention is to give a positive impact of recognizing, one, that the culture lives, it is still thriving, even if we don't get a parade like Dia de los Muertos does, but we're here. And then just as the same I do for January 1st, the Haitian Revolution Day of Independence, where we got our independence from France. And we took the independence for the whole island, even the Dominican side. And there was 15 years of warring to get to that place. I make sure to have soup jumu at my house. And you can go to a restaurant, a Haitian restaurant, and get that. But there's something very different when you're sitting in someone's home and they're feeding you and they're nourishing you as the soup is supposed to do. When it's done in its proper form, which is without meat, it sustains in the body for 21 days. You need that to fight. You need that to be available to your community in ways of being helpful, right? So when I look at that and those intentions, as well as like Conjure Carnival, something that I'm working on to bring more awareness of Haiti's carnival culture with other carnival folks, it's all about intention. So when it comes to media has changed, period. Most people are not even watching cable anymore. Everything's being streamed. Everything's on social. When I was working in the commercial world, because I did TV, I did film, I did commercials. What I loved is, what platform, they would say, what channel will this be aired on? And they're not talking cable. They were talking Pinterest. They're talking YouTube. Because even then they knew this is the way of media. And so with all the intentionality and personal purpose that we all bring to the table, like this podcast, right? Like hosting a meal at your house or in a nice venue that's intimate, and making sure to put that through the streaming waves, whether that's, Instagram or TikTok, creates better associations, creates better stories that help educate. And in some regards, as you said with your friend, a solve. It's like something that's healing, a remedy, as we say, a remedy. Because I heard the stories of my mom and my aunt saying, oh, we're from Martinique, because they had similar shame. And that was in the 60s and the 70s, right? It was the AIDS then in the 80s. It was, this poor half a country always has some stigma. And there's so many reasons for that. But when we're intentional and we're utilizing media as a tool and a resource, so many things can be not only remedied, but definitely help reimagine a new way of associating and connecting and being in community.
So we want you all to continue listening, and we want you to continue to connect with community, and we're going to continue our discussion with Joëlle. We're so excited to come back after these brief messages about soup jomo. We want to hear more about the story of the national Haitian dish that has everything to do with Black resistance and the freedom, the liberation of Haiti and liberation of enslaved people, and who were in bondage for quite some time. So thank you for joining Culture and Flavor, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Roberta's was founded in Bushwick in 2008 and has become one of the most iconic restaurants in the country. HRN made its home inside of Roberta's in 2009, and together they have become part of the DIY fabric of the neighborhood. Roberta's, the pizza restaurant, is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week and serves much more than just the famous wood-fired pizzas. Their team dreams up new salads, pastas, and sandwiches on the regular. Roberta's Tiki Bar is alive and well in the back garden, serving up frozen drinks in the summer and hot toddies in the winter. Stop by the bakery and takeout spot next door for fresh breads, sticky buns, and pizzas to go. But Roberta's also extends beyond Bushwick, with multiple locations in New York City and now in Los Angeles. You can also find their frozen pies in grocery stores around the country. The spirit of Roberta's, like Heritage Radio Network, is everywhere. Here's to many more years of pizza-powered radio. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
So we're back. Thank you for joining Culture and Flavor. I just wanted to go back to what you were saying, Joëlle, about soup jumo and just how, that dish, that soup, is so integral to, the Haitian Revolution, resistance, the abolition of slavery. Can you talk a little bit about why that soup is so important to Haitian heritage?
Yes. So what people don't realize, what I think people don't realize is in Haiti, we were at war with France for 15 years in multiple ways, not just like all out war, but resistance had been going on for about 15 years before we actually hit our independence in 1804, January 1st, 1804, which is why every January 1st, although in the Gregorian calendar, it is New Year for everyone, it is our Independence Day as well. And the soup, so the thing is this, there's two, it's interesting how history works. It can get hijacked. There is a running historical reference of soup jumu being the enslaved Africans taking the elite soup of France and sort of the one that they had to serve their masters, and they own it for themselves. That actually is not historically accurate. The soup was actually constructed by Empress Félicité. And what a lot of people forget is that a lot of enslaved Africans, particularly in colonies like Haiti, were from herbalist nations in West Africa. And so they understood the plants, they understood the roots, they understood, which is part of what folks don't also understand about Haitian Vodou. In and of itself, its base root is herbology. It's herbalism. It's food nourishment. It's food medicine, right? And so with Soup Jumu, she created something because she could see the people had heart. But if their bellies aren't full, if it's not nourished, they won't be able to fight and they won't be able to continue. So with Empress Félicité, she understood that with root vegetables like squash that hold a lot of antioxidants and hold a lot of hydration that we now would consider fascia looking at the body, you want that to latch on to protein once it's consumed. The protein would be the human. So that's why traditionally in its original form, soup jumu is vegetarian, because you need all those good vegetables to latch on to the actual human to then stay with the human And it's been tested that soup joumou can last in the body in its original form up to 21 days. Now you keep eating that soup, you're going to win a war, right? And so this is part of the history that now has been hijacked that folks are now remembering or coming back to recognition. And it's also the power of women knowing how to nourish, as we are doing this podcast on a Mother's Day, but nourish many, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the beauty of the history that I always hold. So when I host the Independence Day soup joumou at my house, I first serve it just vegetarian. I make meat. If people want to put the meat in, they can. They want to put the noodles in, they can. But that wasn't the original way to make the soup way back in like the late 1700s.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, and I think there's definitely some parallels with other Caribbean countries, Latin American countries. When you think about sancocho, when you think about oil down in Grenada, all of these soups were root vegetables, and even gumbo. Maroons, who were running away to, the swamps. They weren't, a lot of runaway enslaved folks were not moving all the way to the North Star, couldn't get to Canada. So you stayed, in the swamps. And so, to make that one pot stew, the starches, everything that you need to live another day, to fight another day is so part of, our history in fighting colonization, enslavement, and just to pass on those stories and legacies and culinary legacies for the next generation so they can also fight another day.
Yes.
I'm so excited just to see, you grow throughout this journey that you're on. And, what are some of the things that we can look forward to that you are working on? I know you mentioned a few things to me when I saw you when we filmed HBCU Tailgate Throwdown that I do want to say is something I'm really, excited for just to see come out and, just you as a Zeta and your relationship with Dr. Ford and, and see you all in your Zeta nest. It was beautiful.
Blue and white all the way from Dillard to Zeta land.
What are you working on that we have we can look forward to?
So currently I am working with the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. I definitely have to give them a shout out. Also lovingly called BEAM. I love working with them because now so very transparently, I don't tell people this often, but I have retired from TV and film, although it means nothing. It means nothing because it's like the mob, you retire, they call you back, it's fine. But I'm actively in my vocation era where I want to be utilizing not only my experiences, my somatic psychology background, to be able to really connect with the community in a way behind the scenes that make an impact. So working with BEAM as one of their program managers is just really a gift. We're doing all these trainings as well as events that really center Black mental health, healing justices. We're talking about reimagining Black masculinity. We're just in these amazing pockets, getting not only lovely funding and recognition. Our founder, Yolo, was just speaking at the Milken Institute on reimagining masculinity and its effects. So currently that's where I'm at now. I'm loving what I do. I'm loving who I'm working with and working towards a better envisioning for Black mental health and emotional health, right? And then personally, I have literally a conjuring up of Conjure Carnival, spelled with a K and no E. And we are, still in our infancy stage, but it's been a delight to come back home to New Orleans and to see where the healing through body and pleasure and joy and music and collective connection actually regulates nervous systems and helps folks heal. And I just want to keep uplifting that, obviously centering Black women, Black folks, queer folks, trans folks, where in traditional carnival cultures, they are definitely, we're not, Black women may be centered, but more from a voyeuristic and exotified space, but not as like ownership, not as making sure that we're doing good for the culture. And then in other spaces, obviously our queer folks, trans folks, they're definitely pushed more to even farther into the margin in carnival spaces. And so with Conjure Carnival, we definitely want to be able to bring them into the centerfold and make a name for New Orleans, to remember it is it's part of the Caribbean. It's part of the Latin conga line. You know, we do a second line here, but it's part of the Congo, right, line, and sort of reclaim those lost histories through revelry and fun and beauty. So Conjure Carnival, like I said, we're still up and up, but I'm getting excited because good things that go on, the good things that come out.
Oh, right. It's so refreshing to see so many young Haitian Americans, you know, just kind of, you know, going through this period, this you know, of just being proudly Haitian. And, you know, I'm watching just some of my friends who are Haitian, just, you know, either through their practice through food, whether they're chefs, whether they're, you know, doing things like the culture. I know they had a crew here in New Orleans and had a ball last year, I think a Haitian crew. And I was just so, you know, impressed by seeing that, you know, because we can't, as a historian, we can't talk about New Orleans without talking about Haiti, you know, and just to see you all just really, you know, taking the helm for those who couldn't say they were proudly Haitian is really beautiful, you know. And I think you all are in a very unique time in history just to be a part of that. And mental health and what you're doing in mental health is amazing. And, you know, I'm curious, are you going to infuse some of your, you know, food as medicine? You know, are you going to look at plants as medicine? Because Haiti, as some of our listeners might know, you know, as well as, you know, all of the Caribbean and just the fauna, the flora, all of these medicinal herbs that, you know, have been used for centuries to cure, to heal, to conjure, you know, have helped us throughout the ages. And, you know, I just wonder if you're going to infuse that in that, because mental health is a huge, huge piece that needs to be focused on in our communities as we get out the pandemic, as we move forward, you know, kind of savage capitalist society that eats your, you know, your mind, body, spirit, and your kids. You know, it's something that needs to, and what I want to say is we have to find ways to go back to ancestral medicine, ancestral healing, to make sure that we can, as, you know, the Haitian Revolution happened, live and fight another day.
Yes. I love that you brought that sort of like bringing that up again, as far as food medicine, food cultures. Most definitely, like personally, as someone, like, I've worked in food television too long. I know too many chefs at this point that the conversation around remembering not only emotional health, how food really regulates our emotional health as people, and definitely as Black folks throughout all of our diasporic cultures. One of my things that I love is to synthesize the cultures in the sense of, you know, we have soup jumu, but when I go to Barbados, I love their culinary crossovers. You can play mass, you can be literally reveling all day in gorgeous costumes. When you're with a Barbadian, the second they're off the road, the first thing they say, let's go get some pumpkin soup. I find that interesting, right? It's an ancestral, not only awareness, but a memory that has sustained them, that they know, even as young people, what we need to sustain what we've just done is to go to pumpkin soup, which is also a basis of soup jumeau, right? So there's a part of the history that we need to keep synthesizing and not keep in silos, so that we realize like, oh, we were doing this in Barbados, we were doing this in Haiti, we were doing this in Colombia, and where are we doing this in New Orleans? How does it show up here, right? Or how can we reintroduce it here? As far as the herbalist side, that I can't get away from that. As I speak to you, I'm looking at my ancestral wall, and the adoptive mother to my Haitian grandmother was a doctor by trade, but because she was a woman, she wasn't allowed to practice outside of being a doula. And so that consistent message of keep a good relationship with the herbs, keep good relationship with the spirit, right? We look culinarily, we don't talk about it in this way, but we're always referring to spirit, whether it's through herbs, whether it's literally through alcohol, right? And yet we're pressing out the essences and the magi out of them to help us, right? To help us stay healthy, to help us get over something that's attacking our bodies. So I definitely will always have that with me. And I look for opportunities to be, again, in not only in conversation, but in community, as I'm also still learning who are the apothecaries here in this town, of this town and city, right? And seeing how to just keep uplifting their work as well as where I can contribute. But that is never lost on me, especially when I'm hosting small, gatherings and get-togethers, that like, this is all healing work. This is all remedy work, so that we can stay in our bodies, right? Stay present with what we've always known. When I think about somatic psychology, I think about Congo Square all the time. For me, it's the birthplace of the most somatic experience in this side of the world. And it was mislabeled and sloppily called jazz. But that was what they were doing at Congo Square. They were remedying each other through music, through dance, through the herbs, the market. And they created something that gave them a sense of sustainability, joy, and to stay in their bodies so that they can see another day for their ancestors and their ascendants, the folks after them.
Absolutely. And I forgot the percentage, but it's a very high percentage of Black New Orleanians who have Haitian ancestry. I mean, clearly because of the Haitian Revolution. And, as my dear friend, Dr. Kara Olish said, there would be no United States if there wasn't the Louisiana Purchase, and the Louisiana Purchase wouldn't have happened without the Haitian Revolution.
That's right.
And, just thinking about just where we are in Bubancha, the land of many tongues, and,
Yes.
Just all of this wealth, how disconnected a lot of us are from the roots and the herbs that once healed us. But, the flip side is, because you were in, media, and will, in some ways still continue to be in media, it's a paradigm shift, I think, that's happening, where this generation is not bombarded by Western religions or any kind of dogmatic religions that put fear in you of medicine, of spirituality. I think there's a huge moment, and you see it on social media, people kind of reclaiming their heritage, doing the research, reading, trying to ask their elders, how do I heal myself with this? How do I attract love in my life? How do I attract wealth in my life? So it's a very interesting time of just research and education and reclaiming. And, I wonder how, and just your observations and just on media in general, and how the internet and these social media platforms have become repositories for the sharing of information, the sharing of visuals. And as Black folks show up in these spaces where they can post things, and create content that we wouldn't have been able to do early Food Network, right? You
Right.
had to play the game and if you were anybody who used a chef that used plantains, just kind of turn the other cheek if somebody said something about like, what is that? You know what I mean?
Right.
How do you see media evolving and telling food stories, as we go towards a world this already is, but as we go towards artificial intelligence, how do we still claim space? How do we still claim, who we are, and passing that down to the next generation in this technology age that's going by so fast and, something new every day? How do we go forward in that space? And where do you see food media in the future?
That's a really powerful question. So the first response that comes up for me is we have to, especially as Black folks, we have to remember that in the height of transatlantic slave terror, our ancestors were high-level encoders. I have a dear friend who said, we look at media now as if we never had the strongest media ever, and it was the drum. That was our first technology. And I want the listeners to really hear that. If you are Black and you just heard that, think about that, because it don't matter where they put us in the world, we know who we are the second we hear that drum, before any TikTok viral thing happens. We know that.
And it was taken from, it was prohibited,
Exactly.
It was outlawed
Exactly.
in Black and Indigenous communities.
Exactly.
That's deep. Go ahead.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. I just had to put that in there.
Yes. And I say that because it was a powerful technology. It had to then be transmuted to become encoded information. And then now I feel like, to your question, we are now the generation of decoding what was encoded. So we can utilize fast platforms to get information out, but we need to keep looking at a larger way of decoding what was already encoded for us to keep finding, to keep remembering to ourselves. And I say remembering again, I say this because I still am very rooted in somatic psychology. And for those that don't understand, somatic psychology is the Western way of identifying the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the nervous system that when you feel something powerful or otherworldly, the hairs on your body stand up. It's when you're sitting in the food court at the mall and somehow you just know someone's staring at you. Your brain, your central nervous system, i.e. brain and spine, is not saying someone is looking at you, turn around. But the parasympathetic nervous system is saying something ain't right, or someone is staring at me, let me adjust, right? So we're looking at that because that is where most of our trauma is encoded, as well as our triumphs are encoded. It is this nervous system that we are inheriting from our ancestors a minimum of 1 million years. And it's the one that says, we don't do fire, or we don't go too deep in the ocean. It's a knowing that you could be 1 year old and know, we don't do fire, we don't go deep in the ocean. That kind of memory. So when I say remembering, I'm not speaking to the brain. I'm not speaking to the wit that Western psychology says that is where you are smart. It's the gut. My gut told me, my body told me. And when we get back to that, and I think that's what's slowly happening, is there's a remembering coming online, both in central and parasympathetic nervous systems. And when the two start to come fully together, we're going to have a way more robust revolution of, oh, we have to get back to this. We have to get back to that. We have to remember why in a lot of African American cultures do we use XYZ when we cook? Oh, we know what salt actually does. We know what heat actually does. We know what plant life actually does. And it's not just in or only in scientific forms. It's in encoded memory of our body. It's an encoded memory of how we live in harmony with each other. And I feel like food is such an easy hack. I talk about that all the time. Hacks. What are your hacks that help you remember? Food is an easy hack. We can sit down together. I always say Black people have probably solved every world crisis over a meal. We just never wrote it down, so nobody get doing it. But we talk, we converse, we delineate over food. And if the food is really good to the body, it heightens a memory. And now with the TikToks and, I say I'm young, but I'm still in my 40s. So it's like, okay, I'm in the older young range, or I'm in the younger, older range. But for young people, they get to the information fast, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it. So you have all this media that's being produced on lots of social platforms, and it's good, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to go with it. They don't have enough physical capital. They have social, which is why they're on social media, right? So it's really trying to help them with all the information that's coming online, becoming accessible, finding ways of decoding, memorializing it, taking over actual educational spaces where we're teaching each other, right? Like truly teaching each other, not just being taught at. And I think that to that point, when it comes to AI, I personally don't say let's all be afraid of AI, but let's also make sure that we are thinking of how to utilize AI as a tool, not a weapon, and definitely for the better good, not to sort of have any more erasure, because that's already happened and it's still happening, and we don't need any more erasure.
Yeah. I think, what you said about just young people, really deciphering and being able to critically analyze the information that they are receiving and that's coming across their phone is so critical. And understanding the past, and, just everything you said about the drums and how, that was so integral. The drum was so integral. And how do we create these kinds of experiences, these somatic experiences today in the 21st century going forward is going to be key to our existence as, things change, or things are really changing around us, by the minute. And I'm just curious, how do you move forward with this this knowledge that you have about somatic psychology to create community, to help break bread with new communities or new learners who are coming into the space of mental health? How do you do that?
Allies, alliances, and allyship. That's my first go-to now. I can't do it all on my own. It's never been for me to do it all on my own. It is enjoying beautiful friendships with like amazing people named like Zella Palmer. I don't know if you heard of her. But
I want to invite to that to the dinners. I definitely want that.
But that's what it is. And for me, I will say this, and it's interesting because I don't talk a lot about this. I went to a college called Goshen College in Goshen, Indiana, with Mennonites, right? And I learned, even though it had its ups, it had its downs, a lot more downs, but it was the first time I'd ever been in a community, definitely of white people, where they were so beautifully aware of their purpose as a culture to help. And everyone is welcome to be a part of that help. And it struck me so deeply as a young person that I was like, if we look at, like you said, dogmatic religions, and particularly in Christianity, they talk about the body of Christ, right? I said, Mennonites are the hands, and they know they're their hands. That's why they get into the world. They get it done. They build, they help with the wells. You come to New Orleans, talk to people post Katrina. They said, child, some Mennonites just showed up and started fixing my house. I learned from them the importance of community, the importance of bonding and coming together. Let's do the job. Let's do the work. What do you do? Okay, great. I can do that. I can help you with this. What? Who do we need to talk to? And it's not to say it's only Black people. You got to find, as always, you got to find some of your good white people. Like, you got to find other folks who have the same mission, the same good intention. They're only there to be of help. And that is my biggest, quote unquote, strategy, right? Is the right alignment, and making sure that people, understand. I have no intention of being a guru. Granted, some people may think that in how they're experiencing me. I have past assistants, past coordinators that they see me as a guru for them in their field. But I'm not. That's not my intention. My intention is, how am I of help, and how can I align with who you are and what you do and where you are. And a second thing I always say, particularly is this: know your privilege. I sit with my own privilege, even in a highly marginalized body. I sit with my privilege, because if I don't sit with my privilege, I don't know how it can be of any use. All of our privileges are of use. If I have 2 legs, then I can walk farther than someone who's in a wheelchair. I'm aware of that. Let me do the thing. But if you're in a wheelchair and you get us front row passes, use your privilege, right? Everyone has to see their privilege, sit with their privilege, for better or for worse, and use it for better is the operative preferred space, right? So I always say that, because I think of people like my grandmother, who, granted, she had to start from the bottom in America. My Haitian grandmother, Renee, she had to start at the bottom and work her way up. But when she retired, as a kid, we would see all these immigrants, not only Haitian, but they would come to our house, and she would get them ready for the world of America. She'd say, okay, this is where you're going to stay. I have someone who's going to take care of you here. What we're going to try to do is raise up such and such amount of money. These are the doctors who can help you. These are the people you can get your food from. You know what I mean? We've lost a lot of that, particularly in this country, but it doesn't mean it's completely gone. And the more we revive it, the more we remember the old ways of bartering, and we can be of some beautiful help.
I think also, it's a lot of the resistance, or the, how it was destroyed, was absolutely policy and law. When you think about Black doulas, I mean, I remember you were mentioning, was it your mother or your grandmother who was a doula?
Adopted grandmother, yes.
Yes. And, just how doulas were literally banned from practicing. And if you look at, I encourage the listeners to look at the history of, African American doulas, of indigenous doulas in the United States, and, how for centuries they were the ones called to, help the rich planter, birth the children, and, and breastfeed and all this other stuff, and knew how to use herbs for the woods to cure people. But once, Western medicine became a hegemony and corporate, then, all of a sudden, all of this knowledge, was gone. And it was also, poor, I have to say poor white doulas as well, because medicine, you couldn't afford to go to the doctor. You couldn't afford to, pharmaceutical drugs, and they were still practicing and trying to figure it out, And so it's so important to try to figure out, in this age of technology, of artificial intelligence that's already here, and all these other things that are trying to marginalize human beings. It's so important to really just, try to find ways around that. And it means sometimes even just getting on a plane. When I look at Morocco, when I went to Morocco and the doulas out there, their practices in Peru, it's incredible how these, this heritage is passed down. But we have so much work to do here in the U.S. to not become, to revive that and to remember.
Yes.
To remember what you said was so powerful, to remember.
Yes. And it's funny because I want to say, I try to continue to say my ancestor's name. Ma V is the name of the woman who raised my Haitian grandmother, although she never birthed her. And there's something around, for those of us that do the large work of beautiful impact of our communities, sometimes we don't always benefit also. And there's this weird, it's like how the psychic can never tell you the lottery numbers because they're not supposed to win. They're supposed to just tell you to go do the lottery. It is that relationship, but we have to sit with the normalcy of that relationship. And I say that because that my Mom V, that grandmother, she could cure vitiligo. We have historical references of her being able to cure things in the village, and she birthed everyone's children, but she herself couldn't have kids. And so my biological great grandmother had 9 kids, and as a joke, not that this is a small island, they don't live far from each other. She said, "Yeah, I can spare one. You can take one if you want. I got enough." And she took my grandmother and she raised my grandmother. And that's also part of community. So I have this beautiful heritage of 2 great grandmothers, one who has this ancestral practice of knowing the land and the herbs and how to really cure things and remedy the people. And another one who just was a giver and a nourisher and, definitely always kept it classy. We called her the madame, and teaches you style and grace and how to take pride in what you create, because she was a creator in her own way. And so that part of remembering, I think it also comes with being real to how we hold nourishment, we hold remedy, and sometimes it's not always just for us, it's for other people. We have to be able to utilize it for other people.
I know we're, coming to the close of our podcast, but the last question I wanted to ask, and I want you to think about this one, just thinking about Haitian culture and just where Haitian communities are now. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about Haitians that you would like to share with our listeners to get them to, really grasp the totality of the beauty of Haitian culture and its people?
I notice I'm a little emotional with that question, and I want to sit with the emotion because one of the biggest misconceptions of Haiti is we are the poorest country in the world or in the Western Hemisphere. And although on paper that may seem true currently, however, up until about 1967 or 68, we were the wealthiest country on the Western Hemisphere, more wealthy than the United States of America. And when you talk to economists, similarly as we all did the frog or the pig in biology, we all had to do that. Haiti is their frog or their pig, because in less than 100 years, it has become the quote unquote poorest, and it doesn't make sense. And so when you're dissecting it, you see how many hands of colonial, imperialistic, capitalistic, toxic, patriarchal systems have been a part of its pillaging and its being tampered with. I still remember hearing stories as the first American born to my mother's family, the elders saying, when the Americans came, which was in the 1920s, 100 years ago, they were cruel. They were the cruelest. They treated us so badly, right? When you start to get into the city banks and the Exxon Mobils, the amount of money they were taking out, aluminum foil for Reynolds Wrap, just all the resources that they were taking and still are in a lot of cases. Why a lot of Haitians don't mess with the Clintons. They meddling with the stuff. All of this creates the quote unquote poorest country in the world, but it ain't the people completely. It is really, I would say, at least 60% of Europe, Canada, the US, really messing with our system, crippling it to the point that the people can barely help themselves. That, especially as a diasporic Haitian, is very hard to watch. It is very hard to help, because we know this isn't just, an unfortunate situation. This is highly systemized meddling. And I will leave my answer at that.
Well, I wanted to thank all of our listeners. I mean, this was such a powerful conversation. Thank you, Joëlle. And I know we're going to have plenty more. And I definitely want to invite you to come back on Culture and Flavor and, just talk more as you, work towards building more with Beam and, your carnival initiative. I'm just so excited for all the things. And I know whatever you're going to do is going to be brilliant. And I know it's going to always honor your ancestors and who you are and how you show up. And, you're just a phenomenal Black woman. And I just really appreciate all the work that you're doing. And I just want to give you your flowers now, and just send some light and love your way. And, sac passe to all the Haitian community that's listening.
Yes. Merci en pile. Thank you, Zella, for having me on the show. Thank you for just creating this space. It is necessary, it is needed, and it is the now. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joëlle. And thank you all for tuning in to Culture and Flavor. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. And thank you once again for this lovely Mother's Day episode. And I just want to, give honor and love to my own mother, Alice Palmer, and all of my matriarchal ancestors who are no longer here with me. Sweetie, Aunt Caroline, I love you very much. So thank you. Thank you all. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. On respect to Josiane Dussek, my mother. On respect.
Take care. Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.